All right, the first comment we got comes courtesy of Nook No Ball, episode 570. Nook said 2000 Shaq, 0203 Duncan, 04 KG, 09, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, Bron, 14 KD, 16 Steph, 20 Giannis, 22 and 24 Jokic, 23 Embiid are all greater than 25 Shai.
Who was the MVP in 21? Jokic was, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. He just don't got him. Okay.
Nah. 21 Jokic was the tough one for me. I favored Jokic slightly, but I can go either way. 15 Steph was one. I gave the edge to SGA. In hindsight, I'd probably give that one to Steph as well. I think I ended up with like Shai's MVP, like 18th of the last 26.
I saw you do that, Mars. I didn't say nothing when you did it, but I'm glad you walked it back. So
Nash and Dirk get no love, but that's crazy.
Oh, I mean, I had 06 Nash slightly better than SGA's MVP season. So can I read what I can read what I had real quick?
What did you have, Mars?
I had Shaq clearing SGA. So just their MVP regular season. That's all this is. So who played better in their MVP regular season? No playoffs included, no storylines, just who was better. That's it. So I had 2000 Shaq clearing. I had SGA over 01 AI. I had Duncan over 02 Duncan over SGA. I had 03 Duncan over SGA. 04 KG over SGA. I had SGA over 05 Nash. I had 06 Nash slightly over SGA, like barely. I had SGA slightly over 07 Dirk. I had SGA slightly over 08 Kobe. I had LeBron clearing SGA. 09 LeBron and 2010 LeBron clearing SGA. I had SGA over Derrick Rose in 2011. I had LeBron in 12 and 13 clearing SGA. I had KD over SGA in 14. I now have Steph slightly over SGA in 15.
What's 16 the difference,
Steph
Mars?
clearing.
Stop right there, Mars. Stop right there. 15 Steph. What's the separator?
I think the offensive impact is comparable. In fact, I would favor Steph. I think what I was underselling was the low minutes that Steph was playing. He was playing like 33 minutes a game. He sat out 24 quarters. This is a Warriors team that was devoid of a lot of offensive talent outside of him and like Clay. And they were able to produce elite offense with him on the floor. I think he had like a plus 18 net differential. Someone brought that to my attention. I think what I was focusing too much on was the lower scoring volume, but the fact of the matter was that Steph was still breaking the league with his ability to shoot threes out of pick and roll. And like it was giving the Warriors a very strong offensive advantage every time down the floor. And it's something I wasn't really accounting for when I first did it. So accounting for that, I think I give Steph the slight edge over SGA. I still think it's close. And then I think 16, he just took a major leap and it's not even close.
Mars, so be clear. So I want you to keep going. So be clear. I mean, SGA, he only played what, 2 more minutes than
something like that
year. I think,
but
if I'm not mistaken,
there's more possessions now in 2 minutes than there was back.
Because I was about to say, I mean, SGA got a 34-point game this year. We only played 22 minutes.
I mean, SGA gonna score at a rate that only like really Embiid just was really matching in recent times. But I still think a lot of what Steph did as a playmaker out of pick and roll, and then just making life so much easier for everyone around him. I do think I give him the slight edge, but I could still go either way because SGA still was a strong defender, and Steph in 15 I think was bad. So like I do think it could go either way, but I'm gonna just favor Steph slightly. 16 Steph clears. I got SGA over 17 Russ. I've got SGA over 18 Harden. I've got SGA over 19 Giannis. I've got 20 Giannis over SGA. I've got 21 Jokic slightly over SGA, but that can go either way. 22 Jokic over SGA, 23 Embiid over SGA, and 24 Jokic over SGA.
Now I want you to rewind, Mars. If we go back to 19,
25 Jokic too, right?
Well, he wasn't the MVP, so
yeah, but you had.
But I would have 25 Jokic over SGA as well.
That's what I was about to say, Mars. So
damn, Mars.
So would you have 19 James Harden if he would have won the league MVP over
I'd
SGA?
have 19. I'd have 19 Harden over SGA. But this was just MVPs. So of the MVPs, I think I had Shai around 18 out of 26, which like it seems low, but like at the end of the day, like someone has to be 18 out of 26. Like these are MVP seasons for a reason. I can understand having SGA over Nash both years. I can understand that. But I think if I go with SGA over Nash, then like there's just as many people who would say I'm wrong for having SGA slightly over Kobe in 08. So like he would still end up in 18th. Like it wouldn't make much of a difference.
With SGA, with SGA, if Shaq would have won in 05, is SGA better than him?
Yes, SGA is better than 05 Shaq in the regular season. Yeah.
Awesome.
That 05 season is just man. But like there's a bunch of non-MVP seasons that I would have over SGA. I think 03 KG would be over SGA. He just didn't win the MVP that year.
Sure.
So like and 2014 LeBron would be over SGA. He just didn't win the MVP that year. So there's still non-MVPs that would also take over SGA. But like of the MVPs, I think I'd end up with him around 17 to 20 in that range. Which is still great.
Which leads me to my next question, Ron, because you and me had a conversation about this a couple of weeks ago, and we talked about SGA if we dropped him in 2004, and you told me that he's probably the best lead guard in the game when you're talking about Billups and Kidd, Allen Iverson, all of those guys. Ron, so I want to rewind the clock 10 years. It's the 14-15 season, and I want to drop SGA right in the middle of that 14-15 season. Where does he rank amongst the pantheon of guards? So I got Irv, I got Curry, I got Damian Lillard, I got James Harden. I got Russell Westbrook. I feel like I'm leaving somebody out.
He's maybe the third best guard in the league, third or fourth, depends on how you feel about James Harden.
I gave James Harden I gave 15 James Harden the edge by a hand.
Hold on, 14, 15?
The 14. I only went back 10 years, Ron. I'm dropping him 14, in the middle.
I'd probably have him third, but
I'm dropping him. I only got Curry and Harden ahead of him. Now
I got Steph and Chris Paul, but.
I was thinking that Chris Paul. That's the guy who I forgot about. That's the guy who
James maybe fourth because James Harden was cold. I don't know, but James Harden was terrible defensively in 2015.
And that's what I'm thinking about that. But I'm thinking about James Harden in 15. I'm thinking about his offensive impact. I'm thinking about SGA's offensive impact 100%. But I'm thinking about James Harden, not only his offensive impact as a bucket getter, but as a distributor also. Right? How much traffic he played in, and not only how much traffic he played in, how he took care of the ball and got guys the basketball necessary in order for them to be put in a position to score. I think that when we're talking about being a playmaker, I feel like that separates him from SGA. Now, when I think about the scoring, I think James Harden was a better one-on-one player than at that point than SGA. I don't think he clears him, but I do think he was a better one-on-one player.
You don't think he clear him? You don't think he's clear?
2015, I don't think. I don't think he. I don't even know if I think he's better.
I don't think he. I do think he's a better one-on-one player. I think he's better at the long ball line. I do think that he's better at getting to the. I do think he's better at getting to the rim. I think he's better at finishing at the rim. At that point in his career, James Harden was a lot better. I feel like with the weak hand, the defensive side of the ball is where I'm having a difficult time because James Harden was just Jalen Brunson on defense.
In 2015, he was a little bit better in 2015 than
I think he was worse in 2015, to be honest.
Damn.
2015, like Evan McHale, James Harden on defense.
Oh yeah, okay.
That's him.
I'm thinking about when they started putting James Harden in that post when they started guarding the
that was more like 2017. 2015, James Harden.
But to your point, Jordan, in 15, don't forget that we had a transition too with the big man. The big man was going away, and it wasn't like James Harden was in the post a lot, but the times that he was in the post, he was in the post switched on to other guys. So again, Ron, I'm dropping SGA. It's 2014, 2015, and we're in the NBA Finals. I just dropped SGA in 2014, 2015. Where does he rank in your estimation amongst the pantheon of guards at that time?
I mean, y'all know me, but I'm gonna give you my top 5. But y'all know me.
Yes, sir.
I got Steph number 1.
Mm-hmm.
I got Westbrook 2.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Then chill. Westbrook led the league in scoring that year.
In 15?
He did.
Yes.
He did.
And SGA was so much better than him as a bucket getter this year as a scorer. It's not even close, Ron.
It ain't close. Like,
it's very close. No, because that chill. That you know what that is. That's that Shaq Jokic argument. Like just because he can do it so many different ways, just because you can't stop this shit, don't mean that I got to do everything else. It is very close.
But they can't stop what Shai does.
Right, but
that's what I'm saying. Yeah, I'm not taking that away from SGA. Don't get me wrong. I'm just saying.
I don't get how it's close. I don't understand how it's close.
To say that it's not. Okay, well, this is just my take. I just want to just get it out there, make sure it's on record, because I have been called a Russ hater before. I want to be very clear.
You are though.
Okay, maybe you're just a Russ playmaking here. I don't know. You seem to be high scoring.
But I just feel like it's kind of unfair when we put guys just because they got a variety of ways to score. That just means that he just clears him as a scorer. and that's why I use the Shaq and Jokic example, because I've had so many conversations where it's like, well, Jokic can shoot mid ranges, Jokic could do this, Jokic could do that, and the only thing Shaq could do is turn and dunk. First of all, that's not the only thing Shaq could do. But second of all, if you just because I score in one way and you score in three ways doesn't make you a better scorer than me. I think it's very close. Now, I'm fine with you saying SGA is a better scorer. I just don't like that it's not close or he clears type of thing. That's
I agree with the premise of, like, I think Shaq's a better scorer than Jokic, for example.
Mhm.
I just don't think this applies to the Russ and Shea situation.
That's fair. Okay.
But I do agree with the premise of,
yeah.
I do
And
agree with
also-
the premise that versatility doesn't make you a better scorer. I agree with that. I just think Shea is just better regardless. So
Yeah, that's
And
that's fine.
when I think about, I wasn't even thinking about versatility, Ox, when I thought about Russ in SGA. I was just thinking about just getting downhill and getting to the rim. When I think about layup packages, what Russ has, what SGA has, I feel like SGA is better. I feel like when SGA
You got SGA better at the rim in the paint and everything too.
I got SGA more in control, and that's why I feel like I feel like he's better. Russ's mid-range game, I don't think that I think that's separate. I don't think that those two, both him and SGA, I think SGA creates way more space. I think he's way more fluent in the mid-range than Russ was at that time. I'll give Russ
I don't know, man. Russ in 2015, that mid-range shit was a fucking cheat code. That motherfucker run full
wasn't
speed
what
at you, get
SGA
you
is,
backing up. Damn near he run full speed at you, get you backing up, and shoot that shit off the glass. Boy, you be like, what the hell? And then he just keep doing that shit with damn near cheat code of 2015 shit. I don't know.
No,
I think you
he
underestimate
wasn't
that
Shea.
Russ.
Like,
No.
It wasn't
wasn't-
smooth.
It was a nice counter to teams practically like trying to take away the rim. It was a nice counter. He wasn't Shea. Like,
man, shit.
but he didn't. But he also didn't need to be Shea because he was that.
That's what I'm
explosive.
saying.
Like,
He
so
was
like,
so-
I want to make that clear. He didn't need to be Shea from the
There
mid
you
range
go.
because he was so explosive downhill that he just needed the counter. He needed that cushion, which unfortunately he no longer has. But like back then he had it and it was cool. But he wasn't Shea in the mid range. Like he wasn't.
Man,
close. He wasn't
the
even
only
some
reason
shots.
why, look, Mars, I could be wrong, and maybe I'm just putting words in my mouth, but the only reason why I'll say you would say that is because you looking at how smooth it is for Shea. Shea get to his spots, no matter who guarding him, and he just, he can make it contested. The problem with the difference between Russ, that shit wasn't contested because they couldn't stay in front of his ass. Like he was getting that much steam
And I
rolling.
can say the same thing, Jordan, about.
But then
about
I would
SGA. It
argue.
wasn't
Then I would
contested.
argue if his mid range is being this uncontested, which I agree with, why he be missing him so much?
Right. I mean,
he
and
was
the
making
space
him
that-
now, but I'm saying
But
back
the
then.
space- but the space that SGA
I said,
create-
why does he be missing him so much? I never said why does he
I
never
mean,
make
well,
it?
when you say so much, it leads me to believe he shoots 20% from mid range.
Yeah.
Maybe
He
double.
wasn't
40%.
SGA.
I don't know what he shot, but
Let's say
like
35%.
SGA's like 50% from mid range. He makes like half.
What
Yeah,
was
I mean,
Russ
but
in 2015? I'm sure
SGA's
you
mid
can pull
range
it up,
is his
Mark.
bread and butter, though, too.
Exactly.
Yeah,
That's my
that is-
point. That's all I'm
that-
saying.
that-
That SGA clears. That's what I'm saying. SGA
Who else
clears
you
the
had,
mid-range.
Ron? You had Curry. You had Russ.
So
Who
I
else you
got
had?
Curry, Russ, and I would probably say SGA. I don't think Harden in 15 was better than SGA.
Hmm.
So I'm gonna go with SGA. I think maybe when you get into 17, 18, 19, then we
Yep.
can start talking about Harden. I think Harden still, he had one more. After 15, he kicked into another gear. After 16, too. I think, after that, he got into, a whole different bag. Kind of like once he got Chris Paul and stuff. But he was still good in 15. That's no knock to him. But
He was
That was
second
third
in
I think he was
MVP.
second. I was about to say, he was second in
MVP.
league
He was
MVP
pretty
votes
good, yeah.
that year. Yes, second in league MVP votes that year. He was a top 5 player.
yeah, but I would go Steph, Russ, SGA, James, and then
What's the separation between him and Chris Paul? At
Yeah,
that
Chris
point?
Paul being disrespected here, but it's cool.
What's the
It's Chris
separation
Paul.
between him and Chris Paul in 2015? This is
Who?
Clipper Chris Paul. This is Lob City Chris Paul, by the way. This is that Chris Paul. What's the separation between him and SGA?
see, if I get to talk
Yeah,
between
you're a
SGA and
Chris Paul hater. You're a Chris Paul hater. Though,
between
so it's
SGA and Chris Paul,
Yes.
like, yes.
the separation is the scoring by a gazillion miles.
Mm.
I'm not gonna say what I wanted to say. So I mean, okay.
But see, like I feel the same way about Chris Paul, kind of how I feel about Steve Nash. So like we don't have to rehash this.
Yeah, we're not gonna get
But,
into
like,
it. It's cool.
Chris Paul was good. I just I think these other guards provide a little something more just in the scoring department.
Where's the separation between him and Damian Lillard at this point? Damian
Him
Lillard.
and Dame. Oh, well, Chris Paul got Dame.
I ain't
At
talking
that
about.
moment in
I'm talking
time,
about SGA. We talking about SGA. We talking about
SGA,
SGA.
Dame?
Yeah. What's the separation between him and SGA?
I hate to step in and interrupt this intense yap session that you're currently watching. But I just have to inform you on all the amazing, spectacular, fabulous, endless ways to play and win over at Prize Picks. Basketball fans, I know the season is just tipping off. Yes, I know this. But you know what that means? It means that you have an opportunity to pick your favorite players and their matchups that are the most thrilling, and you can win money from these. With Prize Picks, you can play daily NBA contests and test your hoop knowledge by choosing the player projections in every single stat line imaginable to make your Prize Picks and take home some nice hard-earned cash. Are you a rookie in the game? Don't even sweat it. I got the playbook for you right here. All you have to do is download Prize Picks, use promo code PANEL, and you will get $50 instantly when you play 5 here with Prize Picks. So what are you waiting for? Download Prize Picks, use promo code PANEL, and join me as we break down all of our amazing daily picks right here on the panel. Prize Picks. Run your game, control your game, win your game. It's easy, baby. It's easy. Defense. I'm a bigger guard. My scoring variety isn't so much predicated on jumpers, more so long range jumpers. And I get to the rack like whenever. And I know Dame got to the rack too, but he don't get
not
to
like
it
not
like
like
SGA.
SGA. No,
And he don't have
this is year 3 as Damian Lillard, by the way. This isn't year 5 or year 6. This is year 3 Dame.
And Dame was nice at this moment in time, but even like over the course of his career, I don't think Dame really had a go-to like where we know it's just money. Like he got a step back, he got his, he'll hit you with that shimmy and pull up on you. He got a 1-2 pull up, but he don't got a go-to like SGA do. Like I'm getting to this spot, and y'all know what it is when I get here. We might as well just all get back on defense.
He did have that 2 dribble pull up to the left in the mid range.
He got that.
He did have that, and he was actually good at it. He didn't have the long ball off the dribble yet at that point. However,
he did
in year 3. Nah,
yeah,
he didn't have it like he had it in year 5 or year 6.
But
the pull up long ball, he didn't have it like he had it in year 5.
He didn't have the range on it, but
No.
he was shooting the pull up.
Oh, he was shooting.
He was coming off the pick and roll, still sparking that.
You can have something, right? You can have something and not have it down, right? Giannis had the transition game in 2018. He didn't have it like he had it in 21. He ain't have it down like he had it in 21. He wasn't handling the basketball in transition.
I'll give you handling the basketball, but I think he had it in.
He was running.
He's a better ball handler though.
We call him run and dunk now. I think that's part of it though, Jordan, right? We called him run and dunk man. I mean, he was much more efficient. He was much smoother in transition in 21 than he was in 18. Way smoother. So my question to you, Ron, is what's the separation between him and Irv? Now, this is where it gets tricky.
So
I don't even think they're in the same stratosphere. SJ clears up. I'm sorry.
At the fifth spot, so I was contemplating a few names. One was Chris Paul, one was Kyrie Irving, and another one, maybe an unpopular name, I was considering Klay Thompson as well. But I know, are we talking about guards or just league guards?
League guards.
Well, no,
James Harden played the two.
Yeah,
but
so
he was a combo guard. He was a combo guard.
I'm heavily considering Klay Thompson. Now, I mean, obviously, like with the ball in his hands, like he doesn't really hold a candle to none of these other guys.
You considering Klay Thompson better than SGA?
No, I'm just so where he asked me who's the top five guards at that fifth spot. I was considering, and I'm going with Chris Paul, but I was considering Kyrie and I was considering Klay Thompson. Klay Thompson of that group, probably the best defender. Actually, Klay Thompson of that group is the best defender.
Wait, sorry. I wasn't listening. My fault.
Why wouldn't he be?
My bad.
Hold on, who do you think I was saying was the best defender?
I thought of the guards you've already said. I thought like Chris Paul, Shai. I thought you were saying he was the best of those groups because Chris Paul's better than Klay on defense. I didn't know you. So.
See, okay, at that moment in 15,
are you were talking about Dame and Kyrie and them? Right?
No, I'm talking about of all. Klay Thompson was a trap in 2015.
Chris was better on defense than Klay.
In 2015,
he got first team on defense.
That's damn the best Chris Paul was on defense.
In 2015,
it's like 2014 to 16 is damn near Chris Paul's best defense.
Mars over. In the late 2000s, late
2000s when Chris Paul was at like peak athleticism and he was getting to the rim like crazy, and that might be where he was at his best offensively. Maybe I don't even know if I agree with that, But defensively, yes, Clippers Chris Paul is the best he was defensively. I don't even think it's that close. The cerebralness, I don't know if that's a word, the ability to understand offenses, make rotations on time. Like, he was still small, but he was so quick and proactive in his defensive rotations that he was still making plays on the ball. His defense on the ball on the perimeter was great. His pick and roll coverage, him and DeAndre Jordan, that drop coverage was impenetrable because Chris Paul was elite fighting through screens.
Hey,
He was
don't
elite
let
at getting
don't
back
let
taps.
Ox tell it.
Like,
Don't
I'm
let
sorry,
Ox tell it.
Chris Paul was like the best point guard defender in the league. Like, that's
including
how good
Rondo,
he was.
including
Like, that's
Rondo
how good he was. Like, I don't know. Maybe people need to go back and watch 2015 Chris Paul. They don't view it as his peak. I don't know, but that period of Chris Paul, monster. Like, he was a monster.
Chris Paul, he was great on defense. He was
Ron,
phenomenal.
So Ron, what was the when you talk about Klay Thompson? I can appreciate the screen navigation because again, we were living in a league for shooters at that point, right? The game was getting expanded.
Yeah,
guys were shooting the basketball a lot, so guys were coming off a lot of pin downs, a lot of fades, stuff like that, and you had to get around screens more so today. But guys were doing that a lot, and I feel like Klay Thompson was really good at that. I also feel like Klay Thompson was a damn good one-on-one defender. I think he was
Klay
awesome
Thompson
on the
took
ball.
every fade. Obviously,
Yeah.
you know, Steph was in the backcourt, so Steph couldn't guard these other point guards.
Yes.
Harrison Barnes, he was a solid defender at that moment in time. He wasn't guarding the best threes. It was Klay Thompson. Klay Thompson. Look, when they played against James Harden, Klay Thompson. When they played against Chris Paul, Klay Thompson. When they played against Westbrook,
was
Klay
Klay a better
Thompson.
defender
When
at
they
that
played
point than
against-
buckets? Was Klay a better defender than buckets?
No.
I think we already had this conversation, right?
No, Ron, he wasn't.
No.
No, he was not. Ron, don't do that. No. This is a real simple answer. I'm
don't think it's that
throwing the ball
simple.
right to the
I don't-
rim.
I
don't
also
think
think
it's that
something that's being forgotten is that 2016 was really the year where Klay started taking all fades. 2015, and this is why another reason why I'm not. 2015, for whatever reason, Steph was still guarding his position. Now, I'm not saying that was a good thing, but in 2015, Steph was guarding point guards. Klay was guarding
you still
two
have to take your
guards.
matchup.
Klay was guarding his matchup. Klay was guarding, like, this is more typical coverage. Klay was guarding two guards. Steph was guarding point guards. So when Klay came up against James Harden, yeah, he would guard James Harden. But when Steph was coming up against point guards, Steph was guarding point guards.
He was dealing
now, that's another reason why I think Steph was really bad on defense in 2015. And then they made the adjustment in 2016 where Klay was taking the best perimeter guy, the best guards, whether it's a point guard or two guard, Klay was guarding him. But in 2015, that wasn't the case. So that's another reason why I think Chris Paul was comfortably a better defender. But anyway, we can carry on. I just want to make sure if anyone who doesn't remember that they weren't doing this switching thing where they would just have Klay guard the best matchup regardless. But anyway, you can carry on.
Yeah, but I would say I got Chris Paul rounding out that 5. Yep. And yeah, that'll really be that. I got Steph, Russ, SGA, James, Chris Paul.
All right.
If SGA played at that time.
I had him at third behind James Harden instead of Russ.
What you got, Jordan?
You guys really think he's better than Chris Paul?
Yes.
What? It's a hair, Mars. And here's why. As good as Chris Paul was on defense, because to your point, you talk about Chris Paul being arguably the best defensive guard in the game.
Point guard, defensive point guard.
Defensive point guard. Let me rephrase that. Not defensive guard, defensive point guard, right? I could flip that around and say that SGA today is arguably the best scoring point guard in the game.
Absolutely.
On top of him being the best scoring point guard in the game, he was awesome on defense. And I think
awesome is a stretch, but okay.
And I think that there's
it's
separation.
Hard for me to say SGA is a point guard though, but I get it. I know he plays point guard.
Combo. He's a combo.
Yeah, he's more of a two guard to me than he is a point guard.
I've always felt like he was, but
he was a two guard, particularly when Josh Giddey was actually like getting touches. But then the last 2 or 3 years, he's been that point guard.
No, but this the style of play that they have to where I feel like the Thunder are running it without a point guard, to be honest with you. But SGA has the ball in his hand, so he make the plays. But
he's not. He's not a typical point guard. He's not a traditional point guard.
To me, that's why it's hard for me to say he's a point guard. I said the same thing about Steph too, though.
Yeah,
I also say the same shit.
That's why I just combo guard. Just group them in combo guard.
So I guess I'm putting them in the same category with Iverson and Jerry West and James Harden.
Yeah, you got to put them in a conversation.
He's in that group. For me, I just like your listed position is just what I'll call you. But in terms of like I think combo guard and stuff is an archetype. That's a style of play. Combo guard, James Harden's a combo guard. AI was a combo guard. Steph's a combo guard.
I think even
Shai's
Russ is a combo guard.
But I don't want to get off the
I
point,
agree
Mars.
with
They play, but they're listed
Ron, I
as
think
point
he's a
guard.
combo guard too.
Yeah.
But I don't want to deviate from the point, Mars, because like you talked about. So I do think that at the lead guard spot, which is what he's listed at, I do think that he's arguably the best scorer in the game. And I feel like on defense, as good as Chris Paul is on defense, I feel like that's how good SGA is as a scorer. But on the other side of the basketball, Chris Paul as a bucket getter, I think SGA is a better defender. And I think that's where the separator is. And I think
You
Chris
think
Paul,
Shai's a better defender than Chris Paul is a scorer?
I to be honest with you, when I think about as good as Chris Paul is in the mid-range, and Chris Paul was fantastic in the mid-range. I'm not going to argue that point. I think Chris Paul was great in the mid-range. I think Chris Paul was great at getting his offense going and getting shots going. When I think about SGA, I think about him being on this defense. I think it gets hidden how good he really is. I think it gets hampered because he's on a team with so many great defenders that we don't really get to see how good of a defender he is. Even though he's on a team.
I think you don't get to see his flaws because of how good his defense
I see that's where you and I differ, because I feel like if he was on a team, we would get to see his flaws, but we would get to see him be a better defender because one, he would have to take more matchups.
And I think he'd look worse.
I don't see. That's what I don't think so, Mars. Because I feel like I don't think that you're giving him enough credit I don't think you're giving him enough credit as a defender. The athleticism is there. He's not Russell Westbrook athletic.
Yeah.
I'm not going to argue that point. No, but the athleticism is there. The know-how is there. The ability to stop plays, the ability to use the right hand, the ability to get to the right spot, beat guys to spots, bump guys off spots, stop guys in transition. I think all of that stuff is there. I just feel like him being in Oklahoma City, because they have the number of guys that they have, I don't think you get to see that as much. It's almost like a guy being a bucket getter, and he's on a team with a bunch of bucket getters, so you don't really get to see how much of a bucket getter he really is.
Okay, well, we obviously are quite far apart on our evaluation of Shai's defense. I think Shai's a good defender. Before any Shai stands come out and be like, "Oh my God, Shai's a good defender," I agree.
Sure.
I think Shai's best on defense is when he's away from the ball. I think he makes good plays at the rim. I think he has really good hands, targeting the ball, getting steals, forcing turnovers. I don't really like his on-ball defense. I think he's capable. Not a huge fan of his screen navigation. I think he gets caught ball watching a bit too much as well. But I think in a position where he's asked to take on a larger defensive load, I think he looks worse than he does in the current OKC situation. Mm-hmm. But I still do think he's a strong positive on defense. I think he doesn't make his defense worse. And as a point guard, that's kind of like the most you can really ask for. Someone who's not hurting your defense. Shai makes their defense slightly better with his abilities to make plays at the rim. I agree. I totally am on board with all of that. Now, the idea that Shai's a better defender than Chris Paul is a scorer, absolutely disagree. I'm not going to come close to agreeing with that. And I think what's being neglected is the fact that Chris Paul was the best playmaker in the league. Chris Paul was the best, he was damn near the best passer in the league.
Hey, Mark,
that's what
I was saying.
That's just been ignored the whole time. We spoke about Shai scoring and Chris Paul scoring, and we spoke about their defense and all of that. We've ignored the fact that Chris Paul was the best pick and roll operator in the NBA. We've ignored the fact that the Clippers offense fell apart when Chris Paul wasn't on the floor.
Sure.
Absolutely just went to pieces. Like, we're ignoring what Chris Paul's best attribute was to make this more of a conversation.
He might have been the best mid-range scorer in the NBA.
We haven't even brought up. Like, his mid-range game was elite. Like, that's why I don't agree with the scoring stuff. Like, yeah, he didn't average 25 or whatever. He averaged like 18, 19. But Chris Paul could score whenever he wanted.
But see, Mark, that's
whenever he wanted. He's going to come off that pick and roll. He's going to snake the pick and roll. And, he's going to get that ball in that shot pocket at the elbow. And he's going to make it every time. Or he's
First of all, he had ones. He had a sidestep tray ball. He had everything. But
he was shooting like 40% from three that year, I think.
But Mark,
he shot 39.
This is why when I said
40.
But this is why I said the other day when we was on here and I talked about SGA. When people talk about SGA and Kobe, when I said SGA plays more like Chris Paul. Like, I think people just underestimate Chris Paul's scoring ability just based off of because he passed a lot. But if you simulated Chris Paul into making him take, how many shots Shai take a game? 18
something.
I'd assume Shai to like 21, 20.
I thought it was like 19. But if you simulate Chris Paul taking 21 shots a game,
22, he takes 22 shots a game.
Okay, 22 shots a game. I'm telling you would see more simulate. It's just because we see Chris Paul as this dynamic playmaker, which he is. But like to Mars's point, y'all, we undervaluing his scoring. Like, the dude could score. Like,
but Jordan,
he was probably the best mid-range shooter in the NBA.
I
I
get
forgot
that.
about KD. You're right.
I get that he
Forgot
could,
about
and he
KD.
was like Chris Paul
Slow down,
did have a
slow down.
bag. I'm not like Chris Paul wasn't whack at scoring. He wasn't like
Elite
Chris Paul was a
handle.
good scorer.
Like,
Definitely had an elite handle. He was still quick at that moment in time. Had burst. Could get to whatever spot he wanted to. It was
Yeah.
crafty as hell. My only problem with that is I can't call you an elite scorer if you don't score elite. Like you can score in
fair
elite
enough,
ways, but
fair enough.
if you don't give me the quantity that
Fair
an
enough.
elite score gives me,
Fair
I
enough.
can't put you in that category.
Mhm.
And that's
I
my
agree,
same
Ron.
problem
I
with
agree.
Steve Nash. When I can't call you like Swiper came up here and capped and said Steve Nash led all those scoring runs with the Phoenix Suns. First off, no, he didn't. Swiper lied to you guys. No, he didn't. Steve Nash was third, sometimes even fourth. He had a couple runs where he was second, and he had one run, the run without Amari Stoudemire, where him and Sean Marion were they both averaged 20
but
points.
I think points per game, like Amari notwithstanding, because I think if someone says Amari is the best scorer on the team, I ain't gonna argue. Now, I'm sorry, if you tell me with a straight face you think Sean Marion's a better scorer than Steve Nash, like, I'm sorry, I don't care that he averaged more points. I don't care. But Amari is cool. But Sean Marion, I'm sorry, like when that much of your offense is created for you, as opposed to what Steve Nash is doing, like I'm sorry, there might be 2-3 points per game difference.
Was Blake Griffin a whack scorer then?
No,
Blake Griffin was a
Blake Griffin was
hell of a
not a
scorer, bro.
whack scorer. But if you ask me, Chris Paul was the best scorer on that team. If you ask me, Chris Paul was the best scorer on that team, and I think it comes down to responsibility. And I think Chris Paul is probably a better scorer than Steve Nash. So I want to make that clear as well.
I think he's the best scorer, Steve Nash.
Like, and I'm high on Steve Nash scoring because of the ability to create. He's got that. His jumper was automatic as well. But Chris Paul upped the volume from what Steve Nash was doing, and his handle and his ability to get to the mid range, like. That was so much of the Clippers' offense. Like he may not
more athletic.
I don't know how many points Blake averaged. I know Chris Paul averaged like 20. I don't know what Blake averaged.
Blake averaged more than him. Blake averaged more than him. I think
Blake
averaged
did average more. Maybe Blake did average more.
19.
But I'm sorry, like watching that 2015 Clippers team, I think it's very clear that Chris Paul's the best scorer on that team. If they need a bucket, it's Chris Paul. If they're needing someone to self-create, it's Chris Paul. Now, being able to score off the ball, be a play finisher, that's valuable. But like, for example, Anthony Davis in 2020 averaged more than LeBron. Now, I understand it's a different scale. Like LeBron still averaging 25.
Yeah.
But we all understand that LeBron was clearly a better scorer.
Yeah.
Clear. Yeah. Now, I understand, once again, it's a different standard. Like, we're talking about 25 point per game scorers.
For both guys.
We understand that. We understand
no, I got you.
But the point
on all three examples.
The point still remains is that I think Chris Paul's, the burden he has to take as a self-creator trumps the minor volume gap that Blake Griffin may have, to where I still think he was a really good scorer who could scale up the volume when needed. It's like he's going to be a pass first guy. And I'm not going to punish his scoring ability.
But hold on, Ron, because yesterday, Ron, because yesterday I'm gonna be real with you, and I saw the clip. I didn't get to see the episode, but I saw certain clips. But I was agreeing with you on the Steve Nash thing. You know, I've been saying what I've been saying about Steve Nash. But I do want to say that sometimes when somebody will say something, we use like certain phrases to nitpick on what a person is actually saying. Like, and that's what I think we were doing yesterday with Ron was talking about Steve Nash. Like we nitpicking like, oh, are you high on Steve Nash? And it's like, no, we can still be high on him, but I can still make a fair assessment. Like, for example,
I think he made a fair assessment, but
okay, that's whatever. But I'm agreeing with him. I agree with Ron for the most part on Steve Nash. But what I will say about Chris Paul being that type of scorer and Ron saying you have to score the amount of points, I agree and disagree to an extent. I agree that the mentality of a scorer that helps you, that puts you in the category of one of the best scorers. You have to have the scoring mentality. Chris Paul necessarily doesn't have that scoring mentality. His thing is playmaking mentality. His thing is point guard mentality. So I agree with Ron on that time frame. But this is where I disagree at, because I feel like if you made Chris Paul and say, Chris, fuck the damn playmaking.
Go get me a bucket. Go get me a bucket.
You would look at reprogrammed him to be a scorer.
Yeah, oh my God, that's exactly what I'm saying. You are talking
Jordan,
about a 28 a got night a game guy. Serious.
I don't know if I'm doing that, but I think that's
I see where you coming from,
Jordan. 28. I'm just like, that's a lot.
28.
Chris Paul played in the league for 20 years, and the most he averaged was 22.
Yeah.
He averaged 20 twice.
Yeah.
But
And I'm saying, like,
is mine
but this is also my problem with Chris Paul with scoring, which I don't want to subtract from the fact that he is the ultimate playmaker.
Sure.
Now, like that is who he is.
Sure.
But my only problem with this, and it's kind of to a fault too, because Chris Paul didn't really get. I think Chris Paul, out of all these superstar point guards and people that didn't get over the hump to get a ring, I think Chris Paul got dealt the worst hand in terms of who I was playing with.
He also got hurt. He also got hurt too. That
part right there.
Even then, though, like we could just talk about Nash, for instance, or even Charles Barkley. I think those two teams that they had, where Nash, the run that Nash had with Amari Stoudemire, where he went to the conference finals, even though it was a couple times. Charles Barkley when he went to the finals.
I ain't cutting Steve Nash no slack, Ron.
I'm not at all. What I'm saying is both of them had better teams than Chris Paul ever had.
I would agree. I would agree.
I know you guys like that Houston team. I think that those two teams, that Charles Barkley and Steve Nash had, and we could use a bunch of other examples of guys that never won rings. But I'm saying I believe that those two had better teams than Chris Paul ever had. So
I would probably disagree with you on that Rockets team, that 2018 team. But as far as the other ones, like the Clippers, the Hornets, too. They went to the finals too, but
he did have a finals run, huh?
Yeah, he did.
But I don't think
the next year they won 65 games.
Chris Paul's had some good. Me personally, I think the 18 Rockets is the best team Chris Paul's ever been on.
Yes,
and I think the 18 Rockets is better than Charles Barkley's Suns.
But okay, do you think that's better than Steve Nash's Suns?
The 07 Suns.
No, I don't think
that 07 Suns team, nigga.
They're like two of the best non-championship teams I think ever.
If we could simulate that series, my God.
If I'm being honest with you, Ron, if I'm being honest with you, Ron, if Amari Stoudemire doesn't get kicked out of that game and gets suspended, I think the Suns are going to the finals, and I think they smoked the Cavs in the NBA Finals in 07.
But hold on, chill.
Chris Paul doesn't get hurt, I think the Rockets are going to the finals and they smoke.
But hold on, chill. A part of that Suns downfall when they was losing to the Lakers and shit like that. I'm gonna be real. I went back and watched those games back in like
2010.
Yeah, I went back and watched. Went back and watched a lot of.
That was the only time they beat the Suns. That was the only time they beat the Suns.
But hold on, but I'm talking about just Steve Nash just taking that lead. This is why I don't cut him a lot of slack, because bro, I watched with my own eyes lay down the stretch. Steve Nash shit the bed.
That was a bad series for Steve Nash down the stretch.
I watched him shit the bed, and everybody want to talk about this engine and shit. This is when I changed my mind about the stuff, and I might have been. And I might need too
many times where he can close.
You're right.
The 2010, because what they did was they started switching a lot.
Yes,
they started switching a lot, and I'm with you. Steve Nash struggled down the stretch of those games, and I'm with you. I agree with you. But I've seen so many times him close series and close games.
In 06, I don't know if I'm about an 06.
Hold on. Look,
I do feel like that was a bad
because this is the first time that I clarified my comments. This is the first time I clarified my comments, and I purposely just didn't do it because I like the conversation. But when I was talking about Rondo and Steve Nash, I wasn't talking about 06, 07, 08. I was specifically talking about 2010, around that time when Rondo was his and Steve Nash. That's what I was talking about. And I made that assessment based off of what I saw Rondo do when they switched it, and based off of what I saw Steve Nash do. That's where I got the whole conversation from. And everybody was,
so you're saying 2010 Rondo over 2010 Steve Nash?
Me personally, give me Ray Jean.
I still obviously disagree, but that's a lot less egregious than you just saying Rondo's better than Steve Nash.
Yeah, that's cool, but that's where I made that assessment from 2010 on, because I saw, bro, I watched a lot of games, bro. This was during COVID when I was just watching shit ton of old school hoops, and I'm like, bro, look at the fourth quarter. Not only was it the last couple of minutes, you are talking about the quarter, bro. Like it was like, bro, the Suns could win this game. Shit the bed every time, and that's what to me I was like, bro. And then you know what was crazy? My YouTube is messy. The next game would be the Celtics versus the Lakers, and I'm like, hey, my eyes don't tell me no lies. My eyes don't tell me no lies.
The 2010 Lakers series was like a rough Steve Nash experience in terms of closing games. But like I said, like 05, I've seen him close games where he's able to score in isolation. Right.
I'm cool.
06, I've seen it. Like 07, even I've seen it without Amari, what he was trying to do against that Spurs defense. Like I've seen it enough to where it's like I'm not going to say you give them grace. Like Steve Nash deserves to be criticized for that 2010 Lakers series. Like I said with any great player, when you play badly, you should be criticized for it. Steve Nash should be criticized for the way he closed those games. But I don't think that's an indictment on him as a player for everything he's shown to that point.
No, I don't. But that's why I said I just cleared it up because I never have, and I just let the conversation go. But even if you look at the video that I made, it's from 2010. Like it's about the 2010 that time of Steve Nash. Like, and then I just went into some bullshit because I was just defending my takes about Steve Nash, and y'all want to say the engine that drives, the little engine that could, and I'm like, all right, y'all full of shit now. But
and I don't because Mars, you made some really good points about Chris Paul at that point, but I also want to make a point about how good SGA was, to your point, off the ball. Even though he gets caught ball watching, but he was also really good off the ball too.
Absolutely.
Creating a lot of steals and being one of the better playmakers on defense, which generated a lot of their offense, right? So when I think about a guy who's in the passing lane, creating steals, getting to the rim, getting and ones, I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think SGA is one of the best players in the league in getting and ones. Well, when I'm creating steals, when I'm creating steals and I'm getting and ones, that's beating up. That's one, that's playmaking. Two, that's causing a lot of trouble for your guards who are getting back. Now that's putting them in a bind where you got to get your second unit guys back out here. And now that's causing even more turnovers for you guys. I think SGA has over 10 games this season where he's got over 3 steals. He's got some 4 steal games. So I think he was a huge disruptor off the basketball. And the fact that SGA and I feel like we're going, I don't want to go in a circle here, but I feel like the fact that SGA was on a team that was so awesome defensively, you're going to find flaws in my game 100% if I'm on a different team, but you're also going to hide my strengths as well. And those strengths, which is me being on the basketball, me being as good off the basketball, me being a rebounding guard, right? Me being in place to beat guys to spots, me being one of the better closeout defenders in the game. I feel like that kind of stuff, if he was off the floor, if he was on a better or a worse defensive team, I think you'd be able to see that more from SGA. That's why I said when I think about Chris Paul as a bucket getter, when I think about Chris Paul as a bucket getter, and I think about SGA, I feel like we're splitting hairs, but I give the edge to SGA.
Sure, I think if SGA was on another team, he'll be exposed on defense.
Exposed in what way, Ox?
That's fair.
Because when I think about a guy, it sounds to me like SGA on this team, he's protected more than he's a good defender.
Both. I'm not. It's both. It's both. It's both.
His flaws are hidden.
When I say that, that's not. So a lot of times I say things and people think I'm trying to knock the player. Right. I'm just keeping it real about how basketball really is. You know what I'm saying? Everybody's gonna get exposed sometimes. You know what I'm saying? So I just think he'll get exposed more, which is kind of just like duh, it's like a duh thing, really. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, he would definitely get exposed more if he wasn't playing off ball and Alex Caruso, Lou Dort, and Case and Wallace weren't making those hard passes. I know for a fact that when you have somebody making passes harder, you throw a worse pass, which makes it easier for somebody playing passing lanes to get steals. You know what I'm saying? I also know that if I'm guarding somebody and let's say Ron's to the left of me, if I'm leading him that way, I know Ron gonna dig and make him go back. And so no, I didn't necessarily make him turn, but we made him turn. You know what I'm saying? We made him go back and kept the ball on this side of the court. But if I'm by myself, he might get around that corner and I look like I got exposed, but I'm still playing defense. I'm playing the same level of defense I would play if my man was right here or not. But since he was there to help Lou Dort, Alex Caruso, Case and Wallace, Chet Holmgren, he's gonna go back the other way. So that's why I say that. I think SGA is a really good defender, but I think this team makes him look up here when he's closer to average.
So can I counter that, Ox, with Chris Paul as a bucket getter? So if he's not on the team throwing lobs to Blake Griffin and throwing lobs to DeAndre Jordan, where he had to score more, I think the shot quality might be a little bit different because he might have guys hanging on him more. So the efficiency is going to change because now I got to take tougher shots, right? So in addition to me taking tougher shots, I'm putting my team in a different space as opposed to when I got JJ Redick on the wing and I can knock and I can get him the basketball where he can knock down shots. Or if I got Jamal Crawford that I can go to when we're down, where we're not making shots, I can go to him, or I can go to Blake Griffin on the block. His shot diet will look a lot different. His shot quality will look a lot different. And on top of his shot quality looking a lot different, that efficiency might look a lot different from him. So I think that goes both ways.
Sure. I not only can you make that argument, but I'm going to jump over there and agree with you, because I said that about Chris Paul a bunch of times. Sure. Not so much the Jamal Crawford thing. I love Jamal, but not so much the Jamal Crawford thing. I'm more so talking about the fact that Blake and DeAndre used to bail his ass out. I'm in the tough situation. Just throw the ball up, Mars.
Okay. But at the same time, I know.
That's. But I think Ron, you muted, Ron. But I'm just telling you for sure. Like, and I've played with many high flyers. Yep. Never played with the Blake. You know what I'm saying? But I played with many high flyers. I've also been a guy that I tell you. I think we okay. For sure. And two things can be true. Two things can be true, Mark.
No, he was not.
David West was bailing his ass out too. David West was getting money on that block.
Chris Paul in the pick and roll with anyone equals elite offense, whether they're a high flyer or not. Like, I think we've seen that. DeAndre Ayton is a bum. I'm sorry, and I watched Chris Paul make DeAndre Ayton good.
Right, Mars. Two things can be. Mark, can we agree that those things aren't mutually exclusive? Like, yes.
Yeah, I think Blake Griffin and DeAndre made life easier for Chris Paul. I disagree with the bailed him out.
Okay.
That's what I disagree with. Like, he's just a merchant of those guys. Like, that's where I.
Mars. There's a thin line. There's a thin line between helped out and bailed out. Thin line.
All right, y'all. We gotta move on to the next comment. Salute to. I'm gonna reread this comment because salute to you because we just talked about that comment.
We still on
over 30 minutes.
That was the one.
Yeah, I didn't forget. Nook No Ball really got us in the mode. He turned the comment to a segment.
I know Nook over there just smiling from ear to ear right now. He think he directed the PC show right now. Boy,
that's why
executive director Nook No Ball.
Hey, that's why the top 5 is my favorite segments of all time. These are my favorite because it's first of all it's engaging with the chat. You know I love the chat. Shout out to the chat.
Yeah, my boy Nook No Ball, boy executive produced this show, boy. Personally on you.
Shout out to Nook. Somebody he be in my comments all the time. Man. Shout out to Nook. It's the player choice way. Yeah, them boys don't get it started. The player choice way. The player choice way. Come and switch lanes into the player choice way.